Last week, Kyle Pitts went absolutely nuclear on Thursday Night Football, and we all thought the world was coming to an end. Are we going to be able to advance our teams without Kyle Pitts? How will we survive? We might have, we might not have. And then in week 16, a more likely character, but nonetheless, another 50 burger on Thursday Night Football. What does that mean for our best ball teams that are still alive? Are they still alive? How can we navigate this Puka thing? Do we have Puka teams? How excited are we for the rest of the Week 16 slate after that crazy, chaotic Thursday Night Football game 2 weeks in a row? We're going to get into all that right now on Spike Week. Good morning, GM. As Matthew says, it is a wonderful morning after an insane Thursday night football game. Super quickly, before we get into this, I want to remind the people, if you have not checked the description of this video, if you have not listened to one of the recent shows, if you have not signed up for Spike Week before, or if you have, we're running a special 40% off sale of our annual subscription. It is $200 normally. You can get 40% off from now until the end of the season. That is an annual subscription, meaning 365 days. It covers all of our tools, all of our rankings, right? We're going to have golf rankings, and we're about to kick off the college football playoff best ball tournament tonight with Alabama and Oklahoma. We cover all the sports, all the tools, cover all the sports. You get access to the Discord, everything there in between. And we're running a sale all the way through the end of the year. It is the holiday season, of course, but it's particularly the holiday season for best ball. So we're running a little special sale. Code playoffs25 will get you that 40% off when you go to, there's a link in the description, all that fun stuff, right? All right, enough housekeeping. It is absolutely, as Flyfish says, the year of the Thursday night football hammer games. We've, if you've been in the DFS space or whatever, fantasy football for a long time, we talked the Monday night hammer or the Sunday night hammer or the late game hammer. This year, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. Dogs are also fired up about the game last night. The Thursday night football game has ultimately decided the best ball slate for the first 2 weeks of the playoffs. We'll see. The late games are a little bit better this week than Steelers Dolphins. So we'll see if we can get a little bit more fun over the course of the weekend. We got some Saturday games. We got a lot of fun incoming, but we're reacting to the Thursday night football game. We're going to go through some of my teams. We can talk about some of your teams, talk about what to do with teams that do or do not have Puka Nakua. Did you get some good pod luck? We're going to get into all that good stuff. So I definitely have to answer this question first. For anyone that hasn't been following, say you're not in the Discord or what have you, the last show that we did here on the channel was Monday night, leading into the Monday night football game. And notably, I advanced the 555 team, DraftKings $555 monster millionaire, whatever team that I live streamed the draft earlier this summer, where I auto-clicked Darren Waller, auto-drafted. I didn't click him. I didn't want Darren Waller on my team. I actually went on a rant, as I tend to do, about the fact that I was angry that I got Darren Waller onto this team. Now, he hasn't been a particularly great advance rate piece, but I was sitting back Monday night needing about, and technically Ollie Gordon could have added some points to the team, but come on, it was Ollie Gordon. And of course, in Ollie Gordon fashion, he got hurt on one of his only touches of the game. Needed about 26 points from Darren Waller, give or take. He advanced that team on his final catch of the night, which was a 6-yard catch on their very final drive, the Dolphins' final drive. Of course, he scored 2 touchdowns to get within striking distance. So yes, I have a 555 team left, one team left. It is the Darren Waller, the infamous Darren Waller team, advanced to week 16. I don't want to spoil it entirely, but also got very lucky, but a smidge unlucky in the pod with the Darren Waller team. There are no Puka teams in my 555 pod. So that's exciting because I don't have Puka. So it would have been a very fun Waller moment and then a quick death if Puka were in that pod, most likely. There are 3 out of 8 Ken Walker teams in the in that pod, so that's not super awesome, but nonetheless avoided Puka and got really, really lucky, and got really, really lucky last week just to get Darren Waller to have his best game in 5 years or something to get through, and needed absolutely every single point. I advanced by 0.3 points. I feel a little bad for the guy that really ran bad, but it is what it is. Crazy. So let's see. Lots of awesome comments. Completely sun running, as Philly says, completely and utterly sun running. Waller is facing the Bengals this week. Quinn Ewers. Let's just give a quick pep talk to Quinn Ewers. Remember that the tight end, every cliche in the book, the tight end is the rookie quarterback's best friend. Remember that. No need to force it outside to Jalen Waddle. Achane is fine. He can help you. Darren Waller is your binky this week, Quinn Ewers. We need it against the Bengals. Every tight end except Isaiah Likely crushes the Cincinnati Bengals. So we're rooting for Darren Waller yet again. This Waller will match Walker. We're hoping that would be sweet. Yes. Insane. I told this story last night. We do a weekly, what we call the lab in our Spike Week Discord. People come hang out. We join a Zoom call. We talk best ball. We talk whatever. You can join and be silent. You can do whatever you want to do. Participate in the conversation. I was telling the story about sweating Waller. So just quickly, and then we'll get into the fun of the Week 16 stuff. I drafted 11 5-5-5 teams, and I was mainly looking at those, right? It's difficult to know really what to root for in Week 15. Week 16, it gets a little more clear. And then, of course, if you get to Week 17, it's very clear. In Week 15, like, you got a bunch of teams that got through. You don't really necessarily know what to root for. You root for your, like, highest owned players or whatever. But I was rooting for my I got 2 of 11 5-5-5 teams advanced to Week 15. And so I was rooting mostly for those. On Monday night, actually, the other team that got through 5-5-5, both of these were like streamed. The other one was co-drafted with myself, Rob, and Bernie here on the channel. We did a series of slow draft videos where we broke down our picks. That team advanced as well. And so I was actually rooting for that one because that one was advancing at the time on Monday night, heading into the Monday Night Football game. However, it needed like really, really poor Aaron Rodgers and DK Metcalf games. And actually in the first half, that was happening, right? It just needed somehow basically Rodgers to not throw a touchdown. We just needed rushing touchdowns or defensive touchdowns or whatever, and Metcalf not to score a touchdown. Obviously, both of those things happened. So that team died. I was mostly rooting, like I was anti-sweating the game, right? I'm rooting against, I was like, look, Ollie Gordon's like not going to play, and Darren Waller's not going to score 26 fantasy points. Like, come on, it's just not realistic. So I wasn't even really rooting for it. No big deal. And then the Rodgers thing happened, and you're like, well, I guess, we can cheer on Waller. And at that point, he has like 4 fantasy points or whatever in the third quarter. And you're just like, whatever, no big deal. And obviously that escalated. He catches the touchdown. Then he catches, I'm standing up pacing around my living room, and he catches the second touchdown. And you're like, my wife's trying to go to sleep and stuff, and I'm trying not to yell, and the dogs are sleeping and all that kind of stuff. And you're very excited. At that point, I was down by 1.3 points and needed the 2-point conversion. They go for 2. I'm like, just please, God, throw Waller the 2-point conversion. He doesn't get it, of course. And so you feel like you're dead. Then the Dolphins somehow get a stop, get the ball back, and Waller catches a pass on the very first play of the next drive. Just truly insane, an absolutely insane run out. We're hoping all of you guys, and of course I'm hoping for myself, to get a pretty good run out as well here. It speaks to the chaos, right? Kyle Pitts and Trey McBride goes nuts, and of course Puka last night. Even JSN has a good game. Stafford has a good game. Just this game is crazy. You got to enjoy the ride, whether it goes your way or doesn't go your way. If you're not having fun along the way of best ball, you're going to lose your freaking mind if you don't have fun enjoying the sweat along the way, because it's unlikely that we're all going to win like life-changing money. That's the goal, but we got to try to have some fun. And I will say that it has been a lot of fun up until now. Let's see. RGT says, where I didn't have Puka, I only have 1 guy in my pod to pass. Where I did have Puka, so did 3 others in my pod. that's the interesting part about the Puka game as it compares to something like the Kyle Pitts game from last week, right? If you joined last week for this particular show, same time on Friday morning last week, we got deep into the Kyle Pitts candlelit vigil for our best ball teams, the coping session that we had around Kyle Pitts, and we figured out that it was somewhere between 60 to 70% of pods had Kyle Pitts. Now, you remember that's just like what an expectation would be. It's probably a lower number because some pods wouldn't have Kyle Pitts and some pods would have multiple Kyle Pitts teams. Puka is a little bit different. He's a first round pick, 1-2 turn pick, which, by the way, how stupid. We constantly talk about things over the course of the season like, oh, I screwed this up, or oh, this was a smash, right? Or whatever. I totally understand, the concerns about Matthew Stafford and his back and all that kind of stuff. He wasn't practicing, but it's such a great example of just like when you get one of the best players from a skill position perspective in football at a discount because of some form of FOMO, whether real or not. Matthew Stafford was dealing with injury, but Sean McVay basically was very open and honest, saying, he doesn't really need to practice. We feel good about him for the regular season, but he's managing this. He's older, right? He's managing this injury, and we got a nice little second round Puka Nakua. You could have him with any number of first round picks, Christian McCaffrey, whatever. And buying that discount is one of the things that I think was a good lesson. Not all discounts are created equal. Just because a price goes down, just because you're getting the air quotes best price on a player does not mean if the market's just wrong about a player, getting the best price is irrelevant, right? Your Joe Mixon teams, how do those Joe Mixon teams feel? Congrats, you got a good price on Joe Mixon. The real price should have been $0. So you still overpaid for him. Puka's a little bit of a different beast, I think, in many ways. In many ways, is Puka Nakua a different beast amongst NFL circles. That much we have learned in the last few days. Good Lord, if you have not looked up everything that Puka has been doing, including what his brother has been doing over the course of the last less than a week, just go read up on it. Guy's got some things to figure out. I will just say after he tweeted, I believe someone said it was definitely less than 5 minutes. Someone quoted it as 2 minutes after the game ended last night. He was already tweeting about how, he was right. The refs are terrible or whatever. And it's just like, buddy, log off. Just log off. The world has been given to you. You have a chance to be a 100 millionaire, get a massive, massive contract, playing a game. You're awesome at it. Enjoy your life. Get the fuck off of the internet where, like, does he derive his self-worth from people looking at him and his stupid ass opinions on the internet? Like, come on, leave that for us idiots down here who can't make $100 million playing football. Let us rant about stupid stuff that people may or may not like on the internet. Go enjoy your life, brother. I'll trade spots with you right now, and I'll put the phone down immediately. I promise you. But incredible fantasy asset, right? And that's what we're here to do. We separate the real world from fantasy football. Fantasy points are scored by any number of human beings that may or may not be awesome. And Puka Nakua is an absolute stone cold fantasy smash, particularly without Devontae Adams. I'll be curious to see what's up with Devontae next week. Having lost, I wonder what that does for the Rams' motivations to rush Devontae back. I would still assume that they feel like we're playing for a Super Bowl, and it would be foolish to rush Devontae back. And in that scenario, you might get Puka again without Devontae, which just means 1 million targets. Is he going to do what he did last night? Now that seems unlikely. 225 yards, I believe, and 2 touchdowns. Probably a little bit unlikely, but nonetheless, Puka, one of the best, if not the best fantasy asset to have in all of fantasy right now. So if you can advance him, he will be highly owned. But I think that's totally fine. Having the best plays, even if they're highly owned, it's good. We want the highest projected players. Let's see. Charles says, in terms of do you have to have Puka Nakua? He says he's a first rounder who went off and to advance in week 16, you need your first rounder to go off. So CMC or Gibbs or Bijan or to relax. He says, I would say this is largely true. I wouldn't agree with like every single point of it. You definitely, depending upon how the scores go, right? Like in week 16, you need your first rounder to go off. In week 15, you didn't need your first rounder to go off. I advanced Jahmyr Gibbs teams, right? Like you could have advanced, JT teams advance. I know he's a second rounder, but what's the difference, right? You could get through. Like I know people with Justin Jefferson teams. I know somebody, I forget who it is in the Spike Week Discord, has a Malik Neighbors team alive in BBM. That's 1 out of 16 advance. So it's not necessarily true that you need your first rounder to go off. It's ideal that you're not counting on Kyle Pitts and Trevor Lawrence and stuff like that to have big games, but it's not impossible to advance without your first rounder having a big game. It's going to be more difficult now to advance, not just because someone else can't have a good game or you can't beat Puka teams. It's that Puka's a little bit more represented and there's a lot more overlap in teams in week 16. So if you don't have Puka, you're still probably sharing guys with the other players in your pod. It is far from over. It's extremely far from over. And we talked about this last week. It's similar, albeit a little bit different. Puka's a bigger up. First of all, Puka scored more points. Now, it was tight end, which is different. But Puka scored more points. And, is certainly going to help your flex position and stuff, right? Because it's a trickle down to your flex. He's also a little bit more popular because he was one of the best picks on the board in the early rounds, if not the best pick on the board, up there with JT and Gibbs and CMC and Bijan and stuff. He's a little bit higher represented. And then you just have natural, he aligned on the board with JSN, who didn't have a smash game, but certainly had a good game, a very good game. He is drafted with Matthew Stafford a little bit more, and Matthew Stafford had a big game. So there's a little bit of that, right? Ken Walker has a big game, et cetera, if people were drafting that. So it is going to be trickier to advance non-Puka teams than it was from a Kyle Pitts perspective last week. Now, is it over? Of course not. Absolutely not. Puka's not going to be on every single finals team, not even close, right? But there's also pods without Puka. There's pods with Puka that aren't going to have a quarterback, right? Or whatever, are dealing with injuries. We'll get to some of the injuries and stuff for week 16, but it's going to be tricky. It's going to be very tricky. I mean, just anytime someone who's very owned, very popular scores 50 on DraftKings, it's a big deal. You know what I mean? It's going to be tough. This isn't just guys are going to score 25, guys are going to score 30, guys are going to score 35. We're talking about 50. That's a lot of points. That's a lot of points, raw points to overcome. Jahmyr Gibbs can have an awesome game and not sniff what Puka Nakua did. So it's definitely going to be a lot more about the collection of your team, with or without Puka Nakua. You still need to have other good players with Puka because, as some people have said, there's other Puka teams in your pod. Most pods. But again, you might have pods without them. We'll walk through some of those. Rick says that's Falcons, Rams. It is kind of funny. Kyle Pitts and Bijan are stone cold smashes. In week 15, we're doing the, oh no, can I get through without Kyle Pitts? And then in week 16, we're doing the, oh no, can I get through without Puka Nakua? And those two teams play each other in the fantasy final in week 17. So it'll be interesting to see. It's looking like Rams Falcons is what you need, is what you needed, but not even because that game necessarily is going to go off. Is because everyone's going to go off before they get to that game, and you needed them to reach that week 17 matchup. Yeah, exactly. Matt says, remember when we used to do it's a short week, and I literally said this yesterday at some point. Think about how crazy it was, actually, that game last night. So short week, both teams on a short week. The travel wasn't that big of a deal, but technically the Rams traveled. There was supposed to be some wind and weather that was not great. That didn't end up coming to fruition. But short week, No Devontae Adams. The Seahawks were missing their left tackle, Charles Cross, their left tackle. A pretty important piece on a not great offensive line to begin with, was out last night. And then Sean McVay had a baby on Sunday. He's got a newborn, his second child he has on Sunday. You got the Puka drama. And then you got two good defenses, frankly. It doesn't feel like that this morning that Seattle and the Rams have good defenses, but they do. And then it's, the whole like cliche second divisional matchups are always lower scoring and all this. So it's like, that could not have been, all of that was wrong. And it's not like the logic is wrong, process versus results, whatever. It's just, that's a perfect example. All this stuff is, right? The Kyle Pitts thing, the Puka game, how insane that game was. Last night, the Rams were the first team in NFL history to have 550 plus yards of offense, 0 turnovers, and their opponent turned it over 3+ times to lose. It's never happened before. They were up 30-14 in the second half and somehow lose. A crazy 2-point conversion, a punt return touchdown. Seattle gets the 2-point in overtime, like such an insanely low probability outcome. But that's it, right? That's what happens in our game specifically, where the outlier stuff is just total chaos that you can't predict over the summer. We spend all our time talking about all this stuff that ends up being thrown out the window because of basically complete and utter variance in the playoffs. That's funny. That's funny. 3 BBM semis, Puka, Stafford, Sharp's team. What if that 2-point conversion is the difference? That's phenomenal. You love to see it. The 2-point conversion, absolutely hilarious. Let's see. Shout out to Rob. Of course, join us on Monday nights. We'll be back on this coming Monday, breaking down what happened in the rest of Week 16, lead you into the holiday season, and of course into Monday Night Football, where we will all be sweating out. Niners Colts on Monday Night Football. Those are going to be some real sweats. Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Michael Pittman, Juwan Jennings, all that. Like, there's a lot of important pieces in that game that we'll be sweating out. And Rob, of course, will be there, as he always is, with me on Monday night. And we will be making fun of his. Hopefully it goes well for him. I think he has Ken Walker on his. He has Ken Walker on a team. I know that. We were at odds last night, rooting against each other. But Rob got the 3rd lowest scoring BBM team through last week. He scored 125 points and advanced from his pod. So everybody can shake their fist and yell at Rob on Monday with his insanely good pod luck that he got. See, that's crazy. Roheen says, my Puka team is in a pod with 2 other Puka teams in the Husky. And the Husky on Underdog is 16 pods. Half of them have Puka. Meanwhile, as I mentioned, it's only an 8-person pod, but still, I'm in an 8-person pod on DraftKings that has no Puka Nakua. And like I said, 3 Ken Walker teams. The pod variant stuff is wild. Philly advanced 6 of 75, but 4 of those 6 have Puka. So let's see what happens. That's the other thing. It's so hard to, because you're leaving it up to just like the variance gods, but it's so hard to wrap your head around. This is why it's not true. Like, advance rate absolutely matters. No one's actually saying that it doesn't, but we joke about like advance rate bros and not caring as much about your advance rate, because what really happens is you get to these playoff weeks and someone with, like, I had average advance rate on DraftKings across the board and below average advance rate on Underdog across the board. And relative to a lot of other people, week 16, I'm close. Like, my expectations are not that different. And so it's like, what you really need is advance rate in the playoffs. You need to get to week 17. That's it. And weeks 1 through 14 is just a small part of that. It feels like a huge part of it because it's 14 weeks, but it's really just 25%. Those 14 weeks are just 25%, and they're the least valuable from a monetary perspective, right? Like, you just like get your money back if you advance out of the regular season. What you really need is to run hot in the fantasy playoffs. That's why we talk about trying to pull all the levers that can help us hopefully run hot in the fantasy playoffs, right? These late season bloomers, these contingent value bets, these rookies, these building teams structurally that give you more shots on goal at that kind of stuff. Why are we a little bit different in some of the ways we deploy our roster construction, maybe here than maybe some other places, is because the whole goal doesn't always work. Some of the stuff, fails spectacularly. That's how it goes. But the whole goal is to try to not focus entirely on the advance rates from the first round, but in round 2 and round 3, and then have a team that's set up in week 17 to score a shitload of points and bring us home a bunch of money. Because if you don't get to week 17 and you don't finish highly in week 17, you're just not going to make much money. And that's just the unfortunate truth of this game. And so, right, like Philly was feeling probably not great after week 14 and probably not great after week 15. And now he's sitting here with the chance to get multiple teams through to the finals, despite not having as strong of an advance rate as maybe some other people did last week. Let's see. Football is so fun and awesome if we minimize the bag sweating and just interpret the game. What again? It was an insane game. I mean, last week was insane too. Falcons, Bucks was a crazy game. We've had some pretty good football games of late, for sure. Let's see. It's much less fun when someone goes nuclear every Thursday and ruins playoff hopes, unless you have them, or you're lucky to be in a pod with very minimal to none of that player, right? It goes both ways. It sucks, and also it can be great. And that is unfortunately the really, really high level analysis that you come here for. It could really suck and it could really be awesome. Or it could be somewhere in between. Spoiler alert. There's a lot to get into here. So I apologize. I'm trying to catch up on all of the chat. Hans Pennyloaf hasn't had this much fun playing fantasy football as I'm currently having it right now, has multiple sweats and still very much live. What I will say is I'm clearly very biased. I've made my life and career revolving around best ball, but I just, there is no other game that the sweat is like this much fun in my opinion. I'm in a bunch of home leagues. I have some home league teams in the fantasy playoffs and all that kind of stuff. It's great to root against your buddies and all that. There's just like nothing like the best ball playoffs. And the chaos is a feature, not a bug. It sucks when it goes against you, but sometimes it's going to go for you as well. And there's just nothing more fun than like, oh, the pods are up, right? Let's go check and see what do my opponents have a bunch of Puka teams? Do they not have Puka teams? How high owned is Kyle Pitts, right? Like, who's my guy, right? Personally, I need Jahmyr Gibbs. We talked about the Puka versus the other first rounders. I need Jahmyr Gibbs this weekend. And so it's like, it's fun to find the things to root for and the total chaos that's happening all the time. I believe this is correct that Rams Falcons in week 17 is on Monday Night Football. I believe. Who's next Thursday? That's a good question. I actually do not know. If Puka is the only wide receiver score they are getting, they are toast. There was only one tight end score. Yeah, I would say last week also played out in a way that made it easier to advance without Kyle Pitts. Trey McBride went nuts. Dallas Goedert had a huge game, and Dalton Schultz had huge games. So if you had any one of those guys, you could, you were losing raw points to Kyle Pitts, but you could overcome Kyle Pitts just because of and that's certainly possible that happens this week too, though. Like I said, Puka being a little bit higher owned, we'll see. Martin is from the future. No need to stress. He already won the DraftKings Millie. Don't worry about it. Let's see. We have football tomorrow, one day to look at advancing teams. Yes, we have some very important games tomorrow for sure. Yeah, that's in reply to Steve. Is we have to sit here and look at your opponent's 50 ball from Puka Nakua for a couple. But tomorrow we have set 2 Saturday football games this week, so we can get over that sweat very quickly. Kulon says we survived Pitts. We will survive Puka. I agree. Let's get into some of these teams. I can show you some of the stuff that I got going on, so you can kind of see, what other people are dealing with on a pod to pod basis. Yeah, I'll say this. I'm not trying to get into to all of this about Puka, but like him turning into Antonio Puka. I told my wife this. It's just been shocking. I didn't really know anything about Puka's like personality or past or right. I didn't know anything about it. A lot of the times, he's not like some big public guy. He hasn't been until this week. He hasn't been a guy that you're like, a lot about. He's not out there doing a whole bunch of advertising campaigns and interviews and podcasts and all that stuff again until this week. He always seemed like this just like kid, and he is, but he just seemed like this like kid that was just like happy. He's smiling all the time, right? He seemed to be having a good time playing football. He seemed like wholesome is what I was trying to explain to my wife, like how chaotic this Puka thing is, because it came out of nowhere. It came a little bit out of nowhere, but we saw over time, like, oh boy, the freezing of the feet and the helmet with the Raiders. And that was when he'd already got ran out of town in Pittsburgh. And like, we kind of saw a lot of the AD stuff coming. This was a total shocker with Puka. And it has nothing. It definitely has, certainly, you could argue it has to do with like the people he's surrounding himself with. I mean, his brother got caught stealing a car of a Lakers player, Edu Thiero. His brother stole a Lakers player car this weekend, and then he's doing this. But what really stands out is just like you just need to have a little bit more awareness of like what your words mean, and like think about other people a little bit. Like stop and have some awareness and some emotional intelligence and some social intelligence about like, what are your teammates going to think about this? What are people who maybe don't agree with this opinion going to think about this? What about your head coach who just had a baby and you're putting him through this stress? Last night, McVay was pissed in the post game because he got blindsided. He didn't know that Puka ran to his phone and tweeted after the game. And playing in an incredible game, they're trying to win a Super Bowl, and McVay's sitting there answering questions only about Puka's actions from this week. And so, like, just like, don't be so selfish. Really, you know what I mean? Don't be so selfish. Think about what your actions and words might be perceived about. Whether or not you're allowed to have opinions is irrelevant. It's just like being a good human in terms of other people. Puka got baited by that streamer. So this is a bullshit excuse. Puka likes that streamer. He knows what that streamer's content is about. If he got baited, then he's a moron, right? And also, I'm not going to get into the Jewish thing because there's Jewish people can say anti-Semitic things. So that's yes, the kid wants viral clicks. So Puka needs to have, right? That's the intelligence and the awareness to understand what he's getting himself into. If you're not smart enough to know what you're getting yourself into, don't fucking do it, right? Don't do it. You need to have that awareness. Yeah, he's definitely a moron. He's a moron. Yeah, and this is the other thing. It wasn't just he definitely got baited. I'm not arguing that at all. But like, he's saying the concussions aren't real. He's ranting about the refs. He's just like it was just selfish, right? It was just selfish. Anyway, too much on that, but it's fantasy. I'm probably rooting for Puka Nakua nonetheless. He can be an idiot. And it is what it is. I'm an idiot sometimes too. It happens. It's fantasy football. We're playing fantasy football, not real life football. All right, let's look at a few teams. Puka Gate. I like Puka Gate. Worst performance on a stream since Rob's chair. That seems debatable. I've had far worse. Let's see here. I have, as you see here, I have 10 total teams. 10 total teams. 4 on Underdog and 6 on DraftKings. And we'll walk through a couple of them. So here's this Puppy Superflex, which, as you see, is down a good bit. And I have Puka on this team, and Puka is 20%. So it's a 10-person pod, 10 team pod here. I have Puka. He is 20%, meaning, of course, he's on one other team. We'll look at that first place team in a second. But again, this is super flex, the puppy super flex. I think I'm a bit of a dog to the first place team for sure, but being one of the two Puka teams is awfully nice, especially in this. If you're unaware with how Underdog does their super flex teams, they actually remove the third wide receiver, or they remove the flex. What is it? Now I'm even forgetting. What's the starting lineup? Yeah, they remove a wide receiver position. So you obviously start a quarterback, two running backs, two wide receivers, a super flex and a flex, and of course a tight end. So they basically take the third wide receiver spot and move it to the super flex, which of course you would like it to be a quarterback. It doesn't have to be a quarterback. It can be any position. But having Puka is a little bit more, I think, in my opinion, valuable in this because you only have to fill two wide receiver spots. And so obviously I have Puka and CD. So those are the things we're rooting for the most. CD 30%, JMO 30%. Jacoby Myers, shout out to me, Jacoby Myers, Adam Thielen team. We're going to delete this video from the internet that shows people that I have an Adam Thielen, Jacoby Myers team. But nonetheless, Trey McBride, Jatavian Sanders, 30% owned. Jatavian Sanders, some interesting pod luck, but it is of course, Dak to CD, Bryce Young to Jatavian Sanders, and it was Geno Smith to Jacoby Myers. It is now Geno Smith unstacked, but it has DeAndre Swift, Aaron Jones. The Zach Charbonnet game was nice. It's not a difference maker. That's the interesting thing that I like to think about in these playoff weeks too. And like banking useful scores is like just as important, not as important. Trying to think of the proper framing. It's important, right? Getting that Zach Charbonnet score is not going to win you the week, but it raises that floor. And now you're just hunting some upside games where you probably had last week too, where you actually had some good scores. You might have had Kyle Pitts. You might have had Trey McBride. This week, you might have Puka. You might have someone else that goes off, but you're like, dang, I got 5 points at my RB2. And so like just banking that 15 from a guy like a little bit more cheaply drafted is super nice. Like I said, it's certainly not like pushing you on into the finals, but there can be like, the glue guys, right? In like real sports, the glue guys, the unsung heroes, right? The lunch pail guys, the guys that are first in and last out of the building. Those guys can actually be like sneaky impactful to get useful scores from a Zach Charbonnet or something like that. And I need it because my running back room is a little light. Swift is nice, not amazing. Aaron Jones is okay. Javonte Williams is solid. But obviously Trey Benson, Tyler Algier, probably not going to have a big game. Jarquez Hunter in game day inactive. Trey Benson out for the season. Sean Tucker and Isaiah Davis, like they could bank a touchdown or something, but they're probably not going to have huge games. So the Charbonnet game was actually quite big. Let's look at the first place team super quick. Like I said, a little bit better than me. Chris says huge Jacoby guy. I drafted so little. The beauty and the misery of this game is you can't predict which teams are going to get through. And oftentimes I feel like it happens more than it should because the fantasy gods are up there messing with us. Is the guys that you didn't even draft very much of end up on your most important teams. And apparently that's Jacoby Myers on one of my most important teams. Viper is a little bit concerned about Josh Jacobs. We can get into that in just a second. But this guy's team definitely better than me at quarterback and already banked 21 from Darnold, has Hurts and Caleb to my Dak, Bryce, Geno. I'm definitely a nice little dog there. And then he has Swift covered and he has James Cook, Tyrone Tracy. That's about it. So really, really, really fading. And as you see, 60% owned James Cook, but really, really, really fading James Cook. He, of course, has Puka and JSN, Chris Godwin, Jaden Higgins. So not a super phenomenal wide receiver room. But again, he doesn't need any more wide receiver points. He has Puka and JSN filling his two wide receiver spots. And then where I'm hoping to make up some ground is my Trey McBride versus his probably just Dallas Goedert. But we'll see. An example of a pod, two Puka teams. Of course, I have one, so it looks a little bit better. But even like my team is far from insurmountable from someone. This person has Blake Corum and JSN, like with AJ Brown, Bo Nix, Baker, JT, Jalen Warren, like Javante. This person has a very good team. Marv looked like he's coming back. AJ Brown, Sutton, Wandale, like good team, right? Kyle Pitts, of course. Kyle Pitts only 20% owned in this Superflex pod. That's hilarious. Keep the Chiefs as I somehow advanced a big dog team, aka Derrick Henry. Haven't rooted for him in years. That's a pretty fun guy to have. That's a pretty fun guy to have on advancing teams. Not in like amazing matchup this week, and he obviously like hasn't been amazing. But even still, I mean, Derrick Henry can drop 200 yards and 3 touchdowns at any moment. Is that likely? Of course not. But that's a good guy to want to be rooting for at low ownership. Just a couple quick other underdog teams. If underdog would load, that would be sweet. Let's go back and refresh. Greg tried the Puka drinking game last night and can't see. Still drunk from the night before for sure. All right, let's just move over to my spreadsheet, my handy dandy spreadsheet here. You could see I was searching for Puka. I am a sicko, and despite the fact that we have Draft IQ and our best ball tools and all that kind of stuff, as soon as Tuesday morning comes around, I logged all my teams because I wanted to see them all in one location. Of course, the DK, you can't see what your opponents have on DK until Thursday Night Football kicks off, and Underdog takes a little bit longer to advance their teams. And so even though we built some tools to help with your exposure and stuff, we're reliant upon the sites, and I couldn't wait because, like I said, I am a total sicko. But as you saw there, so I have 10 total teams. We looked at some of the underdog teams, 4 Puka teams. They are basically all on underdog. I do have a Puka team in the DraftKings King of the Desert, which I guess we could pull up the King of the Desert here. Let's see. 73. Okay. The annoying thing, as I'm sure you guys are also experiencing, it's a Puka JSN team, but it's not awesome. It's not awesome. We lost Tucker Kraft. Doesn't look like Ricky Pearsall is going to play. Michael Penix out. Devon Vele out. Woody Marks banged up, seeming like he's going to be okay, but it's a pretty thin team. George Pickens not really caring too much about playing football anymore, and I really need him as wide receiver 3. Him or Diggs, I guess. It's a pretty thin team. JT, Hampton, hilariously, my running backs are pretty good. JT, Hampton, Travion Henderson, Tyrone Tracy, Keaton Mitchell, Woody Marks, but the wide receiver spot's a little bit weak, and I only have Kyle Pitts at tight end. So it's all right. And then the a little bit unfortunate thing is there in this pod, there is a Stafford Puka team that also had Charbonnet that we talked about before. And then there is a Stafford Puka JSN team. So, pod luck giveth and pod luck taketh away. And I think despite having Puka JSN and some pretty decent running backs, I'm a bit of a dog in this one. It's a little lame that my best team is in the King of the Desert, but nonetheless, do my DK Millie team because I'm pretty sure it is absolutely stone cold dead. I had no one in last night's game. I have Patrick Mahomes and Luther Burden, Trey Benson, and some other guys not going to play and not going to be useful for fantasy on this team. It is Gibbs Bucky, which is fun, but I just am not sure that it has the requisite punch. Obviously, Gibbs Bucky can have some big games, but they have to now. The low ownership part has gone away because 41% Puka went for 50 and 33% JSN went for 24. 16%, Stafford goes for 34. It's great. I can pass some teams, right? I can pass some of these other teams with my low owned guys, but I still need the raw points. And as you said, there's 42% Puka in my DK Millie pod, and I don't have them. So in a lot of trouble for sure. FK Cooler says, I think we have a few more players left on the slate who could get 35 plus on DK. And if that happens, Puka teams for sure have paths to losing. 100%. 100%. It's just thinner, right? It's like there's absolutely there's so many more games to go. There's so many more high upside fantasy assets. There's no bye weeks. Everybody's playing. There's going to be other guys that have big games. And if you combine them all together, you can beat. You can not have Puka and beat those teams. It's just tougher now. Like you're seeing this pod. He's on 42% of teams. Like those teams also have the option of having the other guys who have big games too. So it just made it harder to advance. It's not that it's impossible. It just definitely made it a lot more difficult now. Can you explain the king of the king of the desert? I'm in a semi and one and can't find the format. So can I explain it? Is a funny question and loaded question because I'm not entirely sure I can explain it. I can explain it at a super high level. It is if you make it to next week, you're playing for first place. I believe the minimum prize, it's either $5,000 maybe. I'm not sure what the minimum prize is, but basically, if you win a King of the Desert, right? So you make it to week 17 and you get first. There are other cash prizes. It's just not a lot. If you don't get first, it's like a live final qualifier is essentially what it is. Meaning you need to win this qualifier and then you get to move on to, I believe you play like a DFS slate later at some point, and then there's like a cut down. And it's like I said, can you explain it? No, clearly I cannot. But it's like a DraftKings live final where if you win the ticket, you get in. There's like 300 people or something like that win a ticket, and then you like work your way down through a cutoff and try to make the final. And I think it's $500K to first or something like that. So there's a huge upside in the tournament, but you still have work to do essentially if you win one of those. 6K. Thank you. Steve says it's in Arizona. I knew that it's in Arizona, Scottsdale or whatever, Phoenix area. And you 6K min cash, 150 people, $500,000 to first place. You play in a DFS pod, and then you have to advance, and then you have to advance, right? Basically, if you get to the top 50, you get to go to the live final. I will say, not financial advice in terms of contest selection, because the live final stuff can really be a bankroll drain. But if you ever get a chance to go to one of the DK live finals, don't skip it. Go. It's a lot of fun. They do an incredible job, and they really do right by the people that make it there. All expenses paid. Get to stay in a generally really nice hotel. You get to go to probably some sporting event or something. I think it's at the Waste Management. Is they do it in this King of the Desert, I believe, is at the Waste Management Open, the golf tournament, which is like the biggest party on the PGA Tour, right? But it's a lot of fun. I assure you. Exactly. Like a live final qualifier, but a little bit lower. But it's cool for best ball. If you're like me and you just like to draft a bunch of teams, having lower dollar tournaments that you can draft best ball teams on, that sure, it's kind of difficult even after you win the tournament, which is a huge accomplishment in and of itself. But to be able to draft $1 teams, $2 teams, $3 teams, $5 teams with a shot at 500K, and like the advance rates are a little bit easier in the playoffs for those King of the Deserts. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. All right. So my DK Millie team, that was a corpse. Let's see. I don't think these other I want to look at this $3 because I think this, if I had to pick another terrible / awesome part about best ball, if I had to pick a team that I thought was like when we got to week 15, we got to last week, and I was like, I think this is my best team, it would be this one. This would be my best team, and it doesn't have Puka on it, right? However, if you see here, no Puka teams. No Puka teams in this pod. There is a Stafford team, right? There's but we ran pretty pure on this $3 in terms of my opponent exposure. It sucks that 42% of my pod has Jamar Chase. But like I said, I think if I had to pick a team that was like what's your best team? It would be this one in the $3. Now, it hasn't gotten the perfect run out. Rashee, of course, gets a concussion, and Mahomes tears his ACL. So the perks of Rashee Rice are muted a little bit. But as a little bit of a zero RB bro, I have a lot of teams that are not super zero RB structures. And we kind of hit Yahtzee in terms of the running back room. Travis Etienne obviously is one of the better zero running back picks, just one of the better running back picks overall. Jaylen Warren, Javonte Williams, Ray Davis is whatever. Tyler Algier is like, okay. And Woody Marks at running back on this team, and Kyle Monangai, I should say. So running back, pretty good. Tight end, here's an example. Advanced without Kyle Pitts, also advanced without Trey McBride, but did have Dallas Goedert, right? So it has Dallas Goedert, Jake Ferguson, and Harold Fannin at tight end. Close your eyes if you're have to draft 3 quarterbacks on every team, because this is 1 quarterback. I only drafted Jalen Hurts. It's not the other guy is hurt. I only drafted. It's a solo Jalen Hurts team. And then the wide receivers are not bad. Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, JMO. We talked about Rashee, but Juwan Jennings should get a nice little boost. Khalil Shakir, Matthew Golden, not bad. Of course, De'Ami Brown is down there pulling this team down, but a pretty good team. And like I said, the flip side of like my DK Millie team, it's over, right? It's over. The dreams of winning the DraftKings Millie have died, but we benefited in this pod from some pot luck. Sometimes it's going to work out your way. Sometimes it's not. It is what it is. Oh, shout out. Philly made it in on, you can qualify on PGA, right? Yeah, he said like the PGA side. There's NFL and PGA. If it makes you feel any better, I bubbled out hard in the college football live final. The college football DFS live final on DraftKings is similar, where 100 people qualify, and then you got to make the top 40 in the first round, which was conference championship weekend, and I did not advance out of that, and that one is triggering. Be similar to this, because now only the top 10 in the college football live final on DraftKings make it to the actual live event, but it's at the Fiesta Bowl. It's at the semi, like they take you to the semifinal football game, and I believe also in Arizona, the Fiesta Bowl. So that would have been pretty sick to go watch a semifinal college football game with a chance at, I believe, $150,000 to first place. So it's not huge, but that one would have been sweet. But nope, we sucked. We lost. I love the questions. Who should I start, Marv or Wilson? Honestly, I have no idea. Here's what I'll tell you about Marv versus Michael Wilson. Michael Wilson is definitely good. L taken from me, undoubtedly. I did not think he had this in him. I was not familiar with your game. Michael, good job. Congratulations. Marv still has come back and really neutered, like the last time that Marv came back for the one game when he hurt his heel, he really neutered Wilson's production. Is that going to stay the same? I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that it will after yet another big Michael Wilson game. So I think it's a coin flip. I think it's a total coin flip. So that's a cop out, but that's what I believe. So flip a coin or go to your projections or whatever. I wouldn't stress it out. Trust your gut. If you believe in Michael Wilson more than Marv coming off the injury, I think that's totally reasonable. Let's see. I think I lean to 3 quarterback builds, even with the elite quarterback. Just so nice to have options in the single elimination playoff for 3 weeks. That is, this goes both ways. I always struggle with the expressing the 3 quarterback versus 2 versus whatever, because this is true, but this exact same, it's the same argument for and against, right? If you say I want 3 quarterbacks because I want to have more options each week of the single elimination tournament, that definitely makes sense. But if you draft fewer quarterbacks, you have more options at more positions, right? Every time you take a quarterback, that they can only fill one spot. So yes, you have more options to fill that one spot, and it's definitely an important spot. But You need RB2. You need wide receiver 3. You need flex. The easiest way to advance is to win the flex, not to win quarterback. It's this weird thing where like you need a good quarterback score for sure. You're not going to advance with 8 points at quarterback or whatever in these playoff rounds. But you also didn't need Trevor Lawrence. You needed something decent. But if you have like 6 points in the flex, RIP, right? It's over. You need you because that means you probably didn't have that many other high scores outside of a very weird one-off situation. It goes both ways. It's absolutely not wrong to say I want the 3 quarterback stuff, but also like I said, the same argument goes for just about every roster construction, because every best ball roster construction is I'm giving up something to gain something somewhere else. And every time you take 3 quarterbacks, you're giving up a spot to win the flex. And when we say win the flex, you're winning the flex because you have a bunch of other good scores. It really means you're winning running back and wide receiver and tight end and the flex, right? So you're winning a bunch of spots. You're giving up so that you don't die at quarterback, and that's totally reasonable. But you're sacrificing your ability to win the flex or win RB2 or wide receiver 3 the more quarterbacks you take. So it's always this balancing act between the two. Let's see. Yeah, Charles says this was set up to be a Rice explosion week if the Chiefs were still in it, and of course if Mahomes was still in it. Let's see. Right, exactly. You're not going to die on the vine because your quarterbacks miss a game or something like that. But you also now have made it much more difficult on yourself at running back, wide receiver, flex, and possibly tight end, right? If you take 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends, technically the tight ends can hit the flex. So that's like okay. It's generally not ideal other than last week. If you had Trey McBride, Kyle Pitts, then sure, have your tight end hit the flex. Generally not ideal if Jatavian Sanders is hitting your flex position. So it's all a push-pull. It's all about, there's no, within reason, there are no wrong ways to build a best ball team. And I think that's the thing that we as a collective community get wrong. We all argue like you're wrong, I'm right. 3 quarterbacks versus 2, 3 tight ends versus 2, right? 5 running backs versus 6, whatever. We all argue this like in right and wrong. And that there are none, like I said, within reason. Gilbert Arenas was wrong. Okay. Gilbert Arenas was wrong with the teams that he drafted. But like I said, so within reason, there are teams that just like, okay, like I have a solo Jalen Hurts team. It is live to win the DraftKings $3. And people would be like, why would you ever do that? Well, the reason I have all these running backs, the reason I have 3 good tight ends, the reason I have a bunch of viable guys to help me win the flex is because I drafted fewer quarterbacks. And so I got lucky that Jalen Hurts stayed healthy and has had a okay fantasy season. But you see, I didn't need the huge quarterback score last week. He scored 21 or something like that. Nothing crazy. But let's see. Yeah. And this is the thing that's like really hard to wrap your head around. Henny says the build really doesn't matter if the picks are correct. That is ultimately true. Draft as many quarterbacks as you want if you have all the right guys. You have Puka and Kyle Pitts and whatever, Trey McBride and you have all those guys on a team. Who gives a shit how many quarterbacks you drafted? You know what I mean? But we do the build thing. We talk so much about it. It's because that's more in our control than did Kyle Pitts score 50. Did Puka score 50 in a playoff round? right, exactly. Guy says Gil should have taken 5 running backs first instead of 5 quarterbacks. He would have smashed. He would have. It's true. Would you take Blake Corum's score as a flex? I mean, ideally, no. But Corum is another one that's like, all right, at least what 12? What, he scored 12? Is there somebody in here with Blake Corum? I think, yeah, 13. Is it ideal? No, you want to maximize, like you want like 20 plus, 25 plus at all those positions, but especially like if you have Puka, like have just again, it's like having that floor of 13 for either your running back 2 or your flex spot is nice. It's not ideal, but you're like, all right, I still need some other guys to spike here, right? Like this guy needs several of these guys to still have big games, Bijan, Trey McBride, whatever. But having 13 points banked is nice. So it's kind of like I would sort of take it, but I would prefer more. That's, I think, what we would all say. But I think it's a good start. It's a good start for sure. Flyfish says, I'm more certain now BBM is like the dailies. It's a combos game. Volume is king if you're being smart with your structure and your roster construction. I pretty much agree. We all have different strategies on the volume side of things, right? Like how much to get exposure to this different kind of guy, but massaging, like making sure, we talked a lot about this last night as well in our lab in Spike Week, where the combos thing is, I think we're a little bit we've tried to be out ahead of how you specifically pair certain players together. Of course, we built the Draft Hacker to help you with that. You can see all your combinations and not just individual player exposure, right? But like how often have you drafted with all the other guys on your team? But also, I'm still really bad at, even though I'm doing that part, I'm really bad at like the trying to layer certain like archetypes of players together. So like I'm clearly like a little bit of a zero. You saw a good zero RB room that I just put together, but I also have some, I mean, frankly, the running back room in this, I just pulled up my 5-5-5 team. It has Jahmyr Gibbs, but then I just never got, I guess you could argue like Tyjae Spears was supposed to be like my sort of get me some early points and help me get across the line. But Dylan Sampson, who also technically did do that because Quinshon Judkins was not playing to start the season. So like Sampson was a little bit of a help in that regard. But Tyjae Spears, Ollie Gordon, Taj Brooks, and Kyle Monungai, like it would be good to layer in just one more of that Travis Etienne, Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, right? I know J.K. Dobbins wouldn't help right now, but layering in some of those guys where it's like, I know this guy's not going to be like the total stone cold league winner going in the first round next year, but blending my guys together from the combinatorial perspective is something I'm striving to get better at for sure. Would you take Puka as your flex? Might take Quorum's score as my RB1. I got teams that could use his score as my RB1 for sure. Somebody asked about KD. Did you draft any Gainwell? I can't believe how bad I missed on him. Killed me in season long in best ball. Never felt worse about a miss in fantasy. That seems dramatic. As someone who's a little bit dramatic and was probably being a little bit dramatic about the whole Puka thing earlier, I do apologize for ranting on it. I promise that was not my intent, but you guys know me. I would not feel bad at all about drafting, about missing on Kenny Gainwell. He's a perfect example of, in hindsight, you feel like you should have seen it, but the team has Jaylen Warren, who they've clearly trusted a lot, and then they spent real draft capital on Caleb Johnson, and Kenny Gainwell has never been anything besides this sort of like bit role player. Gainwell, now this is wrong, right? But I'm telling you like what my take would have been over the summer, what my take was over the summer. Kenny Gainwell's like a useful real life football player. Solid on passing downs, doesn't really make like bad mistakes. Coaches trust him, good special teams player, can catch the ball, all that kind of stuff. Like that's a useful guy to have on your real life NFL team. But is he ever going to like really dominate from a fantasy perspective? Is he ever going to take over a backfield? And especially knowing what we knew about Jaylen Warren. And then again, the fact that like I liked Caleb Johnson as a prospect, obviously that didn't work. So there's multiple L's to be taken in this backfield by me, but I just wouldn't feel bad about it, right? There's a difference between, oh, I didn't see this coming, I missed this, versus you're an idiot for not having seen this coming. Like sometimes just chaotic outcomes happen, and you need to make sure you're not just like writing it off as like, oh, whatever, I missed that, who cares? But also you shouldn't, things that they're just like really unrealistic that you shouldn't have seen coming, you also can't beat yourself up about that one either. So I wouldn't sweat the Gainwell thing like at all. It's true. I am a rookie slappy, and Gainwell wasn't even ranked. Did people have Kenny Gainwell ranked? Like, he got a minimum contract. The Eagles didn't want him. And the team that he went to drafted a running back in the 3rd round and already has Jaylen Warren on the roster. Like, I don't know. There's lots and lots and lots of things every year that I feel bad about, regret, need to take L's on, missed, an infinite amount of things. Kenny Gainwell does not really fit that mold. Kenny Gainwell fits the like, wow, that's pretty crazy that happened. I didn't see that coming, but like, I'm not sweating that one too much. This is a perfect synopsis. Roheen has Gainwell on a dynasty best ball team, but he doesn't even remember how he got on the team. It's just nice. That's the Kenny Gainwell story. I don't know how this happened, but if he's on a team, sick, cool, because it's been a pretty good year for Kenny Gainwell. Yeah, it's a crazy run out. Crazy run out. But he held back world beater William Shipley. That is true. Ronnie Rivers held back Blake Corum. Crazy stuff happens. The team also trusted Will Shipley enough to let Kenny Gainwell go, despite the fact the coach loved Kenny Gainwell. You know, Samaje Perine has held back people, and it doesn't, you know, it's a weird, I know it's a joke. It's a weird, running back is weird, dude. That's another thing that I've been thinking a lot about is like, you look at Blake Corum, you look at Kamani Vidal, you look at, you know, some of these guys that emerge after doing absolutely nothing. And I haven't fully developed the thought yet, but just like being willing to think a little bit more deeply about the running back position and how, you know, and we know this, but like growth isn't linear. And sometimes the Blake Corums, right, of the world need a little bit more time. And so now maybe Jarquez also needs a little bit more time, and we shouldn't give up on him. Maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. But being a little bit more open to the fact that sometimes these guys need a little bit of time, and it requires just the difficult part for me and probably most people. Caleb Johnson, right? We're talking about Kenny Gainwell. Caleb Johnson is going to require a leap of faith. Blake Corum, I don't think you should have seen Kamani Vidal coming. He was the RB4 on his team. His team drafted Amari Hampton in the 1st round and signed Najee Harris. And even when those guys both got hurt, Hassan Haskins got the first touch. However, Kamani Vidal has proven to be an NFL caliber running back, and it's just a lesson in sometimes there doesn't have to be this perfect logic. There doesn't have to be this, well, right, he flashed down the stretch. He had this yards per route run. And like, I'm very guilty of like thinking that way of like, I need something to sink my teeth into that shows me, even if it's just like me watching and I think he's better. Like, it's not necessarily the best process, but it's still something I can at least latch onto. It gives me a reason to draft the guy. Kenny Gainwell was just like, I can't come up with a reason other than like you hate Jaylen Warren and Caleb Johnson. You don't think the 3rd round draft capital matters. Like, I don't know. But keeping a candle on for the Blake Corums of the world is something I want to at least consider a lot more. I don't know if there'll be situations like that, right? Every year is a little bit different. I don't know if there'll be situations like that, but I that's one of the like sort of lessons or something I at least want to think about as a potential lesson heading into this offseason. Yeah, Kyron is an interesting one because he got hurt. Kyron, but he didn't do anything as a rookie, and then immediately emerged as the starter for the Rams, though his was injury. But it's fair. It's totally fair. If you Erik, if you aren't on the next Gainwell, Bam Knight, Michael Carter, and yeah, Audric Estime. There's someone. Oh my God, I'm screwing it up. I forget your name in the Discord. I totally apologize if you're watching or listening to this because we appreciate you and I love your contributions to the chat. But someone in the Discord has Audric Estime on a DK Millie team. That's like. It's he shared it and it's got some dead bodies and stuff on there. But like if Audric Estime helped get him through week 15. Isn't that insane? This game is crazy. I don't even know how Audric Estime ended up on the team, but like Audric Estime might take this dude's team to week 17. That's crazy. That's crazy. Let's see. It's the guys who can pass block. Next season, Chris Brooks will hold back Jeremiah Love. Well, you know that I am a huge fan of pass blocking. Too much so sometimes, but I'm definitely a pass pro, and not just pass pro, but like, are you going to be trusted on passing downs? Nerd, very much so. Like I said, sometimes to my detriment, but I do. Right, part of the Kyron thing was that he was an elite passing down player in college, not just as a receiver. He was a very good receiver, not just as a receiver in college, but as a pass protector. And that stuff can get you on the field quicker. It can also keep you off the field as a young player. If you can't do those things, it's hard to get the young guys out there when they are not trusted in pass protection, because you can't just line up and say like, okay, put him in because we're going to run it. Like the defense doesn't know that. Or like, what if you need an audible into a passing play, but you don't trust this guy to protect your quarterback? Like that's the difficult part. That's the difficult part for like Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, right? For Bill. Why is he not playing more? Right? People have been begging for, well, it's because of pass protection. That's why Bill is not playing. I don't know if it was Cliff. I think it was Cliff this week that came out and said like, yeah, we trust Bill to catch the ball, but like we just trust Jeremy McNichols more in pass protection, so he plays on the passing downs. And so those things are hard to figure out, and you're not going to be right all the time, but it is important, right? It is important. Yeah, this is true. Poor LeQuint. LeQuint is a very good pass protector. And if you have a LeQuint Allen team still alive, that just went Undertaker.gif because Tootin is out. And no, he's not really going to like score meaningful fantasy points, most likely. But LeQuint is not dead. LeQuint is not dead. That is for sure. Serp. Thank you, Dorito. Serp has estimate. Just truly incredible. Truly incredible. Tootin will be an interesting one. A real question is Puka in the top 5 next season? Yeah, he should have been this year. We were stupid. We were dumb. Sean had the greatest start to an NFL career for a wide receiver ever. Hitting his prime. Sean McVay, Matthew Stafford got some help in Devontae Adams. I assume the market collectively was like, well, Devontae is going to steal targets away from Puka. It's like, no, he's not. He's going to help them. He stole some touchdowns. One could quibble about that. So you say, okay, he's not the 101. But like, come on. We drafted worse players ahead of Puka Nakua. I drafted worse players ahead of Puka Nakua. We were wrong about him. All of us were wrong about Puka. You could have 25% and you were probably wrong about Puka. Everybody's wrong about it. Bad price. We were wrong. Olaf, welcome. Oh yeah, good call. Warehouse ETN, a free agent. Tootin may have a crazy high ADP. That's a good point. I can't believe we're already talking about big board, little board, but it'll be here before we know it. Is elite QB dead next year? Says TD Vultures. No, I don't think so. It does probably get depressed in price. I think it was just a weird run out. We'll have to have some difficult conversations about Lamar, especially depending upon what happens here down these last few games. But Josh Allen is still awesome. Jalen Hurts is still scoring scoring a decent amount of fantasy points despite the Eagles being truly awful. What does that mean for Jalen Hurts? Jaden Daniels was just sort of a lost sophomore season. I didn't actually draft a ton of Jaden Daniels, so got a little lucky. But I don't really have much thought on Jaden Daniels in terms of thinking about next year. He might be a really good pick depending upon where he goes. But there's no one really ascending into that tier. So that's maybe a good point on like, is it dead? It's not dead, but there's no, and Jaden Daniels, I guess, but there's no next. Like Caleb is playing better, but Caleb's has not ascended to that level. Probably will never ascend to that level. Jackson Dart is interesting because of the rushing, but he certainly hasn't ascended to that level, right? Justin Herbert's really good, not that elite level fantasy quarterback. He's very good, right? Same thing with Drake May. Those guys are very good very good fantasy assets, but they haven't gotten to the truly elite tier. And so I do think we're going to have a fairly different quarterback market in 2026 to think about. I would never bet against Jake Paul ever, not because he can't lose, but because if people think the NFL is rigged, I imagine those same people are hip to the riggedness of Jake Paul fights. I believe this is true. Big board dropped around I think conference championship weekend, or like between the week between the conference championship and the Super Bowl, something. I don't. It's not far away. Basically, is what we're saying. The big board not far away. The professor says it was Stafford's back. Beautiful dog. It was Stafford's back injury that depressed Puka's price for sure. It's just like, should it have? Right? Should it have? Someone might say yes. I tend to think you just draft the superstars of all superstars and trust in Sean McVay. And if it goes south, it goes south. Right? That's why I don't really regret Justin Jefferson that much. Though I drafted like CD and Gibbs and stuff ahead of him. I wouldn't regret Justin Jefferson teams. Sometimes crazy stuff happens, but right, like Jamar Chase has crushed with a variety of different quarterbacks because he's Jamar Chase. So is what it is. Anyway, let's look at this 555 team really quick. It dropped January 25th. If it's on the same timeline, it'll drop. Oh, it's the 26th last year. So somewhere around January 25th. You can always trust the Spike Week sickos to know these kinds of things. I don't look at it because I know that you guys will know it, and I rely upon you for all of those things. Puka is 101. One of one, Olaf says. He definitely is. He's a very unique player, by the way, and I don't mean that to go back to the silliness. He's such a good fit for McVay. Like, it's such a hand in glove fit with McVay because he can, right? Puka blocks really well, which is big for McVay. If you saw last night, they ran so much 13 personnel and they're bringing Puka into block. They run some really cool schemes where Puka comes in, motions in, and actually goes out to run his route either in between the guard or generally between the guard and tackle. And like, that's so weird, right? Like, that's hard for a defense to cover. Like, how do you cover Puka Nakua when he starts his route out running between his own guard and tackle? And like I said, he's a good blocker. He's so versatile. He's good after the catch. He can do it all, but some of the specific things that he does really, really fit McVay, like really, really well. So it's a like I said, just a perfect marriage. All right, let's look at this 555 team, and we will get out of here so everybody can go enjoy. We can get football tomorrow. Got to get your rest before tomorrow. Like I said this earlier. If you just joined recently, obviously this is the Darren Waller. This is my Darren Waller 555 team, which is still absolutely hilarious. Got so lucky. No Puka teams in there's not a Puka team in my 555 pod. So despite the fact that it's an 8-person pod, you have to finish first to advance. Ken Walker is on 3 of 8 teams. Is not super ideal, but like just weird pod ownerships. JSN is no Puka. JSN is only on 1 team, but there's 3 Ken Walker teams. 1 Stafford, 1 Sharps, 1 Kyron, I believe 1 Corum. Yeah, 1 Corum. And I have the only Shaheed and Whittington, and then 1 Cup. No Pukas, 1 Cup is the theme of this pod. But my team, if you hadn't seen it before, we kind of reviewed it before the other night, but is actually a Lamar team. So we talked about the elite quarterback stuff. I'm hoping Lamar finds it. Speaking of Sunday night, Monday night hammers, Lamar goes on Sunday night, and the other quarterback on this team is Cam Ward, and he's facing the Chiefs, and so that's not going to go very well. Lost burden. We'll see what's going on with Dylan Sampson. He hasn't practiced yet. This week I could use him, but only Lamar team, only Gibbs team, and there's only 2 Trey McBride teams, only T-Mac team, only Zay Flowers team. So my path is pretty clear. There are 3 Juwan teams who's probably going to be pretty important for this team this week. And Chris Olave, the highest owned player in this pod, Chris Olave. Bizarre. Matthew Golden, it does seem like Christian Watson is fine. So RIP to my Matthew Golden hope. But RB2 is going to be brutal, especially if Samson doesn't play. It's Tajay, Ali, Manungai is obviously my best option, and we'll know that tomorrow night because they play the Packers tomorrow night. But thin team, but there's some juice here, right? I wish the Seahawks would play Shaheed on offense a little bit more. That would be sick. If we would have got a better game out of him, I would feel a little bit better. Definitely a sizable dog, but not dead even to the really good Ken Walker game because there's no Puka. There's no Puka in this pod. So that is, of course, not all of my teams, but the majority of them. As you can see, I have some teams that got super lucky. I have some teams that RIP with no Puka. There's in between. You're not dead, as we talked about before, though it is an uphill climb without Puka Nakua. Check your pods. Enjoy your sweats. Come join us in the Discord. As I mentioned, 40% off an annual subscription if you use code PLAYOFFS25 until the end of this holiday month. We're enjoying the playoffs for best ball and best ball playoffs with a little bit of a 40% off sale of the annual subscription only. As Dr. Professor says, good luck to everyone. Enjoy Saturday football and the whole weekend. And Rob and I will be back on Monday to break it all down and lead you up into Niners Colts on Monday night to see if me or Rob or you guys or your friends, your parents, your girlfriend get to the Week 17 finals. We're going to find that out on Monday. And I'll see you guys then. Have a good weekend. Peace.
Woo! Those were some spicy takes. Want to stay up to date with all of the other spicy takes we're going to have over here at Spike Week? Why don't you press that subscribe button below? You turn notifications on, we draft a team, boom, you know about it. We have another spicy take, boom, you know about it. You can be there. You can draft with us. You want to stay up to date? That's how you do it. All right, we'll catch you later next time here at Spike Week.